Okay, so as we know, today we're doing formative assessments and summative assessments today. Normally, when it comes to projects and presentations, they would be included in a summative assessment, but formative assessment part is really tiny. So, in order to add beef to the workshop part of formative assessment, I just put projects and presentations with it. And with the projects and presentations, of course, we will talk about the rubrics that go with them. Now, however, projects and presentations can be used as a form of formative assessments as well. It's just that normally we use things like this at when you have a semester project or a quarterly project. It usually culminates in something like a STEAM fair or STEM fair, depending on whether you want to have art in it or not. And presentations are usually, the final thing of either the year or the semester. But they can also be used for formative assessment. You can use micro projects and micro presentations throughout the year just to see how students are progressing. So it's quite okay to have them as formative assessments as well. I know that I like to do that. And in fact, I will even do short presentations with students to have them summarize what they have done. So like at the end of the week, I would say Zane, this week is going to be your week to do a presentation on what we did in class all week. And it would count as a micro presentation. But you have to make sure you schedule everybody to be able to do something like that, so that you're not just picking on, one student or a couple students. So with this part of the workshop, the three particular objectives are: for formative assessment, we want to be able to analyze understanding of key concepts using exit tickets, self-assessment tools, and reflection prompts. So with this, with formative assessment, we're asking students to take a large part in the formative assessment. And then when we talk about projects and presentations, we will develop projects and presentations that are clearly aligned with specific learning objectives or learning outcomes, incorporating clear criteria for assessment and opportunities for feedback. And then, of course, we will have a feedback part. And with that, we will provide and receive constructive feedback on projects and presentations, focusing on the learning process, specific aspects of the work, and actionable suggestions for improvement. And the key word here is effective feedback. And this is, again, one of the reasons why I like to use projects and presentations for formative assessments, because that feedback is really important to let students know where they need to catch up or how well they're doing, so that they can have the confidence to move forward. Okay, so of course, formative assessments, of course, they are the continuous process of gathering information about students' learning progress throughout a learning experience. I'm sure you know this already. So it's just formative. It's how we form the students. So we have to do this over a period of time. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens throughout the entire semester. Okay, or throughout the particular unit. Just whatever we have our curriculum divided into. So what are the benefits? Some of the benefits include, of course, that it improves learning. Formative assessments definitely improve learning because it gives us an opportunity to adjust our learning patterns or teaching patterns so that, learning becomes maybe not easier, but it happens. Sometimes learning isn't happening. Why is that the case? So formative assessments not only help the students to improve learning, but it also boosts their engagement, and it provides targeted instruction. This was the one that is most important for us. They're all important, but when I say most important is because we as the teachers, how are we targeting particular outcomes? How are we teaching? Why are the students not learning? So if we want to improve the learning or boost the engagement, well, sometimes we have to change our instruction method. Okay, so that helps us. If students aren't getting it, we got to do something different. Okay, it's not always about them not learning. Sometimes it's about us teaching. Okay, and of course, it promotes self-reflection, both for the teacher and the student, and sometimes the administration if you share your formative assessment progress with admin. Okay, and then of course we do have different types. We have our observations. Observations are watching the students. What are the students doing? How are the students performing? These observations come from us observing, by us watching our students. So we can do this many different ways, of course, while they're doing particular activities during our teaching sessions. What are those formative assessment opportunities? Well, it's doing activities. It's doing exercises during the class. So you teach a little bit, and then you have them practice what you have taught so that you can see if they understand what you have taught them. If you don't provide that opportunity, you're just babbling on. You're not. You think that you're teaching, and in your mind you're doing a great job, but how do you know? You don't know unless you see if they know what you're teaching, and you can only see if they know by giving them activities or exercises to accomplish, or at least try. And then, of course, you walk around the room while they're doing these activities, and you can look at the steps that they're following or not following, and you can actually make adjustments at that time. It's really not complicated. It's something that every teacher must do in order to make sure that their students are understanding what is being taught. Okay. And then, of course, we have these things called exit tickets. An exit ticket is no more than just either a question or a series of questions at the end of the class. Sometimes you can do this as like a summary. And with the summary, you're asking the students to summarize the lesson rather than you standing up there and summarizing. Why repeat yourself? Have them repeat what you're doing, what you have done. So you just ask questions to the students and see if they got what you have been teaching or what you taught the entire class. Okay, and then of course we have quizzes. I don't believe in pop quizzes. Let me clarify that. I don't believe in pop quizzes as far as scoring goes. I don't believe in scoring, giving grades on pop quizzes. Quizzes, I think the ones that you're going to be marking and putting, entering in the books for them, they should be notified of these quizzes. But you can have pop quizzes where you just, okay, everybody put your books down. We're going to see what you know. And just because it's really just an activity. It's just a series of exercises just to check understanding. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But again, pop quizzes for scores, that's not really fair. Some kids just aren't in their mindset. They may be daydreaming all class for whatever reason. We can't use pop quizzes as a form of punishment. That's just not right. So pop quizzes for scores, not good. Pop quizzes to check understanding, very good. Okay, so we want to do that, of course. And then open-ended questions. What are open-ended questions? We sometimes also call them comprehension check questions. So instead of asking yes or no questions, we don't want to ask yes or no questions. It doesn't really do anything. The only time we ask yes or no questions is when we see where a student is kind of daydreaming or kind of drifting off. You might ask a yes or no question just to snap them back into the lesson, but you're not really checking them for understanding anything. You're just getting their attention drawn back into the lesson. So that's the only time the yes no question should be asked. Another question that we shouldn't really ask is, do you understand? The answer is always going to be yes, because they don't want to be put on the spot. So we don't ask, do you understand? Instead, we ask comprehension check questions or open-ended questions and just check their understanding. Make sure that they know what is happening. Okay? And then, of course, we have self-assessment tools, as we talked about with the rubrics the other day. Sometimes we can use rubrics as self-assessment tools. And we can also use just the exercises. Even with math, we have 3-4 questions we want them to do just to make sure that they understand, and then write the answers on the board. And then they can self-assess on that. You don't have to go over every single question with the students every time. You give them the questions, and then you give them like 10 minutes, and then you put the answers on the board, and then you move on. Or you open it up to questions. Did everyone get these correct? If they didn't get them correct, then you go over it. You don't have to spend all that extra time on reteaching material if it's not necessary. So that's one way you could do it. And of course, remember the rubrics is a big thing. Okay, so let's move on to projects. When it comes to projects, remember the projects. I'm a big project guy myself. I love projects. To me, excuse me, in today's society, in today's world, we have to be able to demonstrate that we can do something. I'm not sure if everyone is aware of it, but more and more career opportunities are coming up that don't require college degrees. Even Google even clearly states that they don't require a college degree unless you're going into one of the engineering departments or something like that. And even then, if you can demonstrate your abilities with them, demonstrate your skills, your skill set, they still don't require a college degree. They might require you get one within a certain period of time while you're working with them, in some of these positions. But the vast majority of their career opportunities, you don't need a degree. What they want instead, and a lot of high-tech companies actually are wanting the same thing, and that's for you to demonstrate skills. How do we get students used to demonstrating skills? We do projects. We have to have projects. And I know that can be difficult sometimes, especially when we have administration or we have parents or whatever. We have a mindset or we have a tradition or a culture of where we have to teach the entire book. One good thing that I like about American curriculum is that we don't have to teach the book. We teach the concepts in our curriculum. We teach the ideas. We get students to perform according to the concepts that is in the curriculum. So if we can do that through projects and presentations as well, especially in English and in social studies, presentations are a really big deal. If we can get students to do things through projects and presentations without doing quizzes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we still have to have our midterms and our final exams, but usually those are government mandated things anyways. We have to have a record, some kind of digital or numeric record of accomplishment. But anyways, moving our kids into possible career opportunities, because that's what we're here for, they have to do projects. Okay, and these projects need to be observable skills, of course. Why should we have projects? We should have projects because, first of all, they deepen understanding and knowledge. That should go without saying. They demonstrate an ability to do something. They demonstrate their understanding. They demonstrate their knowledge in a particular topic or subject. Another thing is that they hone their 21st century skills. Of course, I've just got done talking about that quite a bit. Again, a lot of companies nowadays, they don't really require college degrees anymore. They're requiring you to demonstrate skills. So Let's get students used to, doing stuff. And then, of course, it cultivates creativity and innovation. You give students the first couple of times, if they're not used to doing projects, that they may do some kind of low end innovation or low end creativity. But that's why we have to do them more and more, and that's why I encourage micro projects. If you're only having 1 or 2 projects a year, honestly, that's not enough, especially nowadays. Try to have these micro projects, just small things that they do, a couple times a semester. And the more that they do projects, the more you will see that their creativity and their innovation really starts to come out. Okay. And then, of course, it bridges the gap between theory and practice. They spend all their times taking notes or studying from the book and reading and listening to lectures, but they never get to do anything. So having them build a project based on the things that you've been teaching them, this takes care of that gap. Projects also develop observable social and emotional skills, especially with kids nowadays. We're concerned more with their social and emotional skills because they spend so much time online or behind a screen. By doing projects, it gives them an opportunity to come out of that screen environment and use their hands for something other than using a mouse or a keyboard. Okay, and of course, emotional skills by being able to work together. And now, of course, presentations. When it comes to presentations, they are absolutely integral to any student's development. Again, when we look at the fact that they're behind a screen a lot, they get home and, they're just, it's not like when we were younger, we didn't really have screens. Our screen time was watching maybe a sitcom on TV a couple times a week. The rest of the time we were outside doing stuff or, inside doing stuff too, like I collected stamps and I collected coins and I collected leaves from trees and, I was a collector of things. I don't know of any kids that are collectors of anything nowadays. But, anyways, the point being is that presentations give students an opportunity to not be so inundated with screens, and it gives them an opportunity to talk in front of their peers and get rid of any shyness, hopefully, or any fear that they might have of talking in front of people and expressing their opinions about certain things. And of course, we should encourage them to express their opinions about anything they want. But of course, when it comes to the presentations, you have to have your parameters, what they're going to be presenting on. I mean, you could have like an open mic type presentation from time to time if you wanted to. That might actually it might actually be interesting to see just whatever random things some of these students might have on their minds. But again, presentations normally follow a rubric, the same with presentations. And we'll get into that in just a minute. So why have presentations? Again, it develops confident communication skills, as I said, and then it also boosts critical thinking and analysis. Why does it boost critical thinking and analysis? Well, because nobody wants to be embarrassed by what they say. So most people, they think before they speak, especially when it comes to presentations. So they think through these problem sets that you might give them, what they're going to be presenting on. They have to do a little bit of research. They have to analyze the information that they're going to be passing on to you so that they can either get a better grade or they don't look silly. A lot of the, when it comes to presentations, they're concerned with how they look to their classmates and to their teachers. So they analyze the information before they say it. before they write it down and put it on their presentation. So it's all good. And then also it helps them to master their organization and planning, because when it comes to presentations, as we all know, you have to plan them out. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of, random stuff. So by giving presentations, and whether you do it, ask them to do PowerPoints or show pictures or provide some visuals of some sort, that's not the point. The point is, in what order are they going to be presenting their information to you? Okay. And then, of course, it also enhances creativity and innovation again, because they have to think through, how they're going to present things. Some presentations are really creative. I've seen some of the most interesting things that students have had to say, but also through the visuals that they've provided. And then, of course, it helps to build self-confidence and public speaking skills. That's one of the major points of, having our students give presentations. We want to have them build that self-confidence. We want to help them with that. So it's really important that we give them the opportunity to do that. Okay. And just having them give one presentation a year is not going to do that. So really consider giving the summary at the end of the week or something like this can help. And then strengthens collaboration and teamwork, especially if you're going to do group presentations. Don't be afraid to do collaborative presentations. So the first thing that we have to do when we're talking about projects and presentations, of course, is we want to make sure that we align our projects and presentations to our outcomes and our objectives, okay? Because otherwise, we don't want to just have students give projects and presentations just by having them randomly do stuff. Usually, a curriculum director or an academic director at a school will give you the opportunity or even give you the presentation or project packages that you are supposed to do with your students. Not always, though. So if that doesn't happen and you have to come up with stuff on your own, just remember to align them so that there is purpose to what you're doing, okay? So, of course, why do we align? It ensures purposeful learning, as I just said. It clarifies expectations and provides direction, of course, and then it promotes deeper understanding and application. We have these outcomes that we're trying to strive for, so having these projects and presentations aligned with our outcomes really helps them to understand the end goal. And then it facilitates assessment and feedback, of course. We need to be able to give feedback in certain areas, certain outcomes, to make sure that we're going to be able to complete or achieve our outcomes by the end. And then it boosts self-engagement and motivation. When students and even parents and you, when everyone can see that you're actually achieving your outcomes through your presentations and projects, it encourages certain people to actually participate, because like right there at the top, ensures purposeful learning. When there's a purpose, people tend to get more involved. And then, of course, it provides differentiation opportunities. When you see that you have a particular outcome that you have to achieve, sometimes you can give one student a project idea that, or help them with their project that isn't as complicated as perhaps another student. And then, of course, demonstrates real world applications. Whenever you do projects and presentations, make sure that they apply to real world. One of the biggest things that students tend to ask is, how does this pertain to my life? When am I going to use this in my real life? And this is where math actually, is really important. We have to do more projects in mathematics. Get them to do some type of engineering things. Get them to do some kind of coding things. Get them to do, build a bridge or something. There's all kinds of different project ideas that we can do with students to get them to use their math in ways that, show real world applications. The other subjects aren't as difficult to prove, how we can use them in real life. Maybe science sometimes can be a little bit difficult, but again, by developing our projects and our presentations ahead of time, it's not difficult to make those connections. So, how do we evaluate? How do we assess? One of the best ways that we can do it is by using our rubrics. As we know, our rubrics are a roadmap for guiding both students and teachers towards a fair and objective evaluation. We talked about rubrics the other day. You understand, how they are used. So this really is just going to show us how we can best use rubrics for projects and presentations. Okay, so why are rubrics important? Of course, they provide us with clarity and transparency. We know this from the other day. There are, clear expectations. Students know exactly what is expected of them, and they're able to strive to fill in the highest level according to our descriptors, right? They provide us with fairness and consistency, of course. All students know that by accomplishing this, they can't say, well, why did you give him this grade but gave me this grade? Well, it's easy if you use a rubric. You say, well, this is where this is what you did. I'm sorry, but you didn't do this. Prove to me that you did this, and I can change your grade. But that doesn't happen. And then it helps us again improve our feedback by looking at what the descriptors are and saying you did this, but you didn't quite do this, so this is why this is your grade, and it helps them with that. And it also allows students to self-assess. And when you do projects and presentations, make sure that you give them the rubric ahead of time so that they can, evaluate what they think that they might be able to achieve based on the rubric that you give them. So they're not, a lot of times they aren't surprised at the grade they get because they kind of knew where they were going to fall. But you have these students again that when they look at the descriptors, they say, well, I got to do this in order to get 5 points in this. I'm going to do all of that, and they really strive for it. Whereas other students, they won't even look at the rubric, so it won't matter. But you have to give them the opportunity anyways. Okay, and of course, using rubrics allows us to again have some differentiation in our teaching and in our projects and in our expectations. Okay, and of course, communication and collaboration. When we use rubrics, our communication and collaboration increases. Collaboration between parents and students, collaboration between teachers and students, and if it's group work, collaboration between students. And of course, communication everywhere. Okay, 360 communication. So here is an example of what a project or presentation a rubric might look like. As you can see, we're using the same standards of excellence across the top that we used the other day because I don't want to complicate things. Exceeds expectations, meets expectations, approaching expectations, and not yet meeting expectations. And then 4 criteria: content accuracy and depth, organization and communication, creativity and originality, and presentation skills. And as we look at all of these, it's quite easy to see where each one is individual. There's no overlap. It's easy to identify exactly where a student should belong. or what grade they should get. And with all of these, again, you can assign points if you want it to. Like exceeds expectations could be a 4, meets expectations could be a 3, approaching 2, and not yet meeting could be a 1. I don't recommend giving zeros because the only time that I would give a 0 on a project or a presentation is just if they absolutely refuse to do it. But if they at least try, but they don't meet the expectations, well, give them a 1 at least. Don't give zeros. That's really harsh. So if we divided it by like 25% for each one, where a 4 would be 100 and meets expectations would be a 75, approaching expectations would be a 50. I wouldn't recommend that, but I'm just saying for the sake of this, then the not meeting expectations would be no lower than a 25. I mean, that's still not a good grade, but at least it's not a 0, So just try to think about what's happening with the students that makes them so that they're at that level. Maybe give another opportunity as well. I know I would, unless, like I said, they just refuse to do it, and sometimes you have that too. So, but is this a good enough rubric? Well, for us, perhaps it is, and for maybe some college kids, this might be clear enough. But because we're dealing with KG through 12, maybe 12th graders would be able to understand this well enough. But because we're dealing mostly with middle school up to even grade 9, this type of language could be too complicated. So let's look at reducing the language to be appropriate. And where would we start? Well, the first place that we're going to start is we're going to look at the English language arts, grade-specific learning outcomes. More specifically, we're going to go to grade 8. On grade 8, we have project ideas, presentation ideas on pages 37 through 39. And then for the learning outcomes, remember your learning outcomes are on, what was it, page 35 for grade 8. And then so on the next page, there are groups and, a whole bunch of these that I did for you. The second one for, which one is this? For a project is historical fiction trial court dramas. So the focus is on reading comprehension, analysis, critical thinking, argumentation, and writing. This particular project matches the learning outcomes 2, 4, 5, and 6. I don't know why I put 5 before 4, but anyways, it's 2, 4, 5, and 6. So it fulfills all of those learning outcomes. And so what the idea is for the students to choose a historical event or social issue with conflicting interpretations and perspectives, assign characters from the historical period to the students. This is what you would do. They could either be a journalist, a politician, an activist, ordinary citizens. And then you hold historical fiction trial court dramas where students present their characters' perspectives on the event, utilizing historical evidence, personal motivations, and persuasive arguments. They also incorporate research on primary sources, historical documents, and diverse viewpoints to support arguments and build convincing cases. And they write character testimonies or scripts for courtroom presentations, incorporating literary devices and appropriate historical register. Now, this might seem like it's kind of complicated, but you can team up with social studies so that you could actually work together as cross-curricular project so that you could actually kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak, so that you can have, as long as the teachers agree on the rubric and everything, then, you'd be able to take care of this in 2 different classes at the same time. And that way, if you have a cross-curricular activity like this, you have two evaluators for the when it comes to marking. The first thing, of course, that we need to do, as we know, is come up with the criteria. So with this, we have content knowledge, research and analysis, project design and organization, presentation and communication, creativity and innovation, effort and workmanship. These are the criteria that we thought of. Now, how many are there? Remember the other day we said you should have 3 to 5, but like I said, usually what you'll end up with is more than 3 to 5, and then you'll have to try to, maybe cut something out. So with this, we had what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's only 6. So you can have 6 if you want to, or you can take one of these out if you want to. Maybe you might take effort and workmanship out if you wanted to, because the other ones really, I don't think that you'd want. Maybe content knowledge you could remove, but again, it's okay to have 6. Just don't have 7, 8, 9, 10. That's too much. Okay, and then of course with our standards of excellence, don't want to change them. We'll just keep them the same, and then assign points. Easy enough. And then of course here is an example of what the rubric might look like. And again, as you look at it, let's look at the content knowledge exceeds expectations. The descriptor for that is demonstrates a profound understanding of the chosen topic supported by compelling evidence from multiple reliable sources. Now for us, that's easy for us to understand. It's not complicated for us. But for a student, remember this is 8th grade. 8th grade, maybe they would understand it. But so yeah, we made our rubric. It looks nice. It's okay. We know what it means. But again, we have to break the language down. So it might look like this. After we adjust it, the content knowledge, they could be a rock star, deep understanding backed by strong evidence from multiple reliable sources. It's not complicated language. It's easy enough to understand. Okay, so this is, and in fact, I'll give you this particular rubric that you can use for English and social studies, and this would go with your 8th grade. But you could use it in 9th grade, 7th grade, you could use it one up and one down if you wanted to. But when you get lower than that, like in 6th grade, you might want to change the language a little bit more. Definitely if you're doing it in something in 3rd and 4th grade, number one, you're going to want to reduce the criteria down to like 3 things, so that it's not so scary when a student sees that. And then the language, of course, even simpler. Okay, so this is how we would do a rubric for projects and presentations. And then when we talk about the group project example, the group project, it's a little more. There's a little bit more to it. When you do group projects, you're going to want to word it differently so that, like, if you look under Master Explorer, Content Knowledge, Master Explorer, Group presents accurate and relevant information. And then there's other things like down on the bottom, collaboration and teamwork is an addition. We added that part. But you could take out one of the other things if you wanted to, because now we have 7 criteria instead of just 6. So you just have to change the language a little bit, make sure you make it so that it's for the group. And then you don't want to use the same rubrics for individual and group projects. You got to make them different. Okay, you have to make them different. And then, of course, we have to give effective feedback. Why give feedback? Of course, it promotes growth and improvement. It deepens our understanding. It develops metacognitive skills, thinking about how we think. So by giving good feedback, we help our students to think more clearly about how they are thinking. Okay, and then we want to help them boost confidence and motivation through the feedback that we give, and of course Giving good feedback helps to improve communication and collaboration. That goes without saying. And it helps us to make sure that the students are understanding that what we are doing aligns with what our expectations are for the year. Okay? And it provides a safe space for learning. If you give feedback constructively, the students know that it's a safe place for them to learn and grow. Giving bad feedback, of course, does the opposite. So you have to be careful not to give bad feedback. So how do we make feedback effective? Well, first of all, we focus on the learning process. It's not personal. I know it's easy to make it personal sometimes, but focus on the learning process. Also provide actionable and specific feedback. This is what you did. This is what you need to do. Okay, type of thing. It also helps students self-assess and improve. So you want to help your students self-assess. So while you're giving feedback, ask them how they felt they did and what they think they need to do to get better. The golden rules for feedback. Let me tell you. The golden rules for feedback are 4 things. First of all, be timely. We want to give feedback within a timely manner, usually, within a day or 2 days. Don't wait weeks to give them feedback. Second thing is be positive and encouraging. So when you give feedback, make sure you're in a good mood. Don't try to give feedback when you're in a bad mood, because you'll come across, even though what the feedback you're giving them has nothing to do with your personal life. If you're having a bad day for whatever reason that day, it's going to come across to the student as you being harsh on them. So just try to be in a good mood when you're giving your feedback. Even if you've had a bad encounter with a colleague or admin just before the feedback session, it's okay to postpone it and just say, look, we're going to have to do this tomorrow. Something came up. Don't tell them why. Obviously, they don't need to know that. But again, be positive and encouraging, and be respectful and empathetic. Empathetic. Put yourself in their shoes. Okay, and then be focused and concise. Don't go too deep into things that that they just don't need to know about. So, and those are the golden rules for feedback. So, in summary, we want to make sure that we, use formative assessments the right way, by using formative assessments to check understanding throughout a lesson, and at the end of lessons throughout the week. At the end of the week, this helps both us and them, both teachers and students. And you might be able to inform a parent if one of your students just isn't getting some concept. You've tried and tried and tried many different things, but they just aren't getting it. Well, maybe it's time to involve the parents in something. Remember that projects and presentations are used for deeper learning. It's trying to teach is not just about lectures. It's about getting students to perform something, to show us what they know. Remember that aligning our presentations and our projects with our outcomes is key. Well, without doing that, what's the point? Remember, it's very important to give effective feedback, not just marks, not just grades, but why they have received certain marks. And even if they get 100%, they're stellar. Don't just say, hey, you got everything correct, you don't need to talk. No, explain things to them. Always have some feedback, because you don't want to come off as dismissive if they do very well. Sometimes students strive, or crave your attention as well. You might not believe it, but they do. And if they get 100, they still want you to talk to them. Okay. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we make our feedback actionable. This is what you did. This is what you need to do, and give them action points. You can even give them plans of action for the next time. Say, these are the things you need to work on for the next project or presentation. Okay. So that's our formative assessment project and presentation. Any questions?